A tourist splashed water in a guard's face, thinking he could get away with anything. But what happened next shocked the crowd and changed everything. Ready to find out why this moment became legendary? Buckingham Palace. A grey, damp London day transformed into a vibrant chaos by a crowd of tourists. Cameras clicked, phones stretched out on selfie sticks, and a royal guard in his impeccably pressed red uniform and tall bearskin hat stood motionless, like a statue carved from stone. The guards were symbols of dignity, honor, and the eternal traditions of Britain. Yet for some they had become no more than an amusement park attraction. And then he appeared. Mr. Joker, as he would later be dubbed in social media comments. Clutching a water bottle and wearing a smug grin, this tourist with an American accent acted as though the world was his stage and everyone in it existed for his entertainment. His voice sliced through the air like a blade against glass. "Hey, buddy, you alive in there? Give us a smile, huh? You're not a robot, are ya?" The crowd chuckled. Some frowned in disapproval, but most just kept filming. To them, this was a show. To Henry, the guard on duty, it was a challenge. His face remained stony, his posture perfect. Inside, he felt a surge of irritation, but smothered it instantly. Guards don't react. Ever. But Mr. Joker wasn't satisfied. He stepped closer, ignoring the clear white line tourists were forbidden to cross. "Hey man, you must be roasting in that hat, huh?" he quipped, and before anyone could stop him, he splashed water from his bottle onto Henry's face. "There, now you're refreshed. You're welcome." The crowd gasped. Some reached for their phones to capture the prank of the century. But even as droplets trickled down his face, Henry's gaze didn't falter. He blinked slowly, once. Perhaps he thought, of course, someone thinks they're royalty just because they bought a plane ticket. Or maybe, really? Splashing water? That's your grand idea of humor? But outwardly, he showed nothing but infinite patience and professionalism. The crowd began murmuring. Someone said, "That's too far, even for a tourist." Others chuckled nervously, recording the scene. It seemed the world held its breath to see just how far this caricature of a tourist would go. Mr. Joker, emboldened by the attention, decided his performance wasn't over. After the water stunt, he stepped back only a couple of paces, pulled some loose change from his pocket, and tossed a coin at Henry's feet. "For your tip, pal!" he sneered, as if expecting applause. Some in the crowd giggled, but the laughter was uneasy, as though people were trying to decide, is this really supposed to be funny? A young couple, visibly upset, shouted, "Are you serious? He's a real soldier, not a clown in a theme park." Henry stood as rigid as ever, though his eyes narrowed slightly, a subtle but powerful reaction. Internally, he reminded himself, "Stay calm. They're trying to provoke you. It's your honor not to respond." But the Joker took this as encouragement. Phones continued recording, and he basked in the attention, feeling like the star of some absurd comedy. "Hey!" he shouted. "You don't look too grateful for my tip. Maybe the horse will appreciate it." And before anyone could intervene, he moved closer to the horse, standing beside Henry. Reaching out toward its bridle, he acted as though it were a petting zoo pony, rather than a majestic animal trained for royal service. The horse, as if sensing the idiocy of the situation, sidestepped and snorted loudly. The crowd reacted with a mix of gasps, laughter, and angry whispers. "This is too much!" someone muttered. Without breaking his stance, Henry raised his voice, firm but calm. "Step back, sir. You are violating royal protocols." The moment was a turning point. His voice rang out with authority, not aggression, a command that underscored the absurdity and audacity of the tourist. But predictably, the Joker ignored it. "Royal protocols," he scoffed, laughing. "Does that mean I can't pet the horsey?" "Oh, I'm sorry, Your Highness." The crowd leaned in, cameras at the ready. Henry saw the lenses, the embarrassed faces of some onlookers, but his focus remained steadfast. With each move the Joker made, the tension in the air thickened. It was clear. Someone had to put an end to this farce, and it certainly wouldn't be the tourist. Amid the escalating conflict with Mr. Joker, a soft yet desperate voice broke through the commotion. "Please, let us through!" It was a woman pushing a wheelchair with a young girl, no older than 8, sitting quietly. The woman's face showed a mixture of exhaustion and concern, while the girl gazed curiously at the unfolding scene. Yet the crowd, engrossed in the show, ignored them. Some were filming, others laughing, and a few even egging Mr. Joker on. "Yeah, show those soldiers who's boss." Noticing the woman, Mr. Joker smirked and stepped back, right into her path. "Oh, you want to see the horsey too? Wait your turn," he said, as if this was his domain. The crowd seemed oblivious, but Henry saw. Henry heard. The guardsman, bound by duty to remain motionless, did the unthinkable. He stepped forward, like a statue suddenly brought to life. The crowd froze, phones lowered, and an air of tense anticipation filled the space. Without looking at Mr. Joker, Henry addressed the woman. "Please, come closer." He carefully cleared a path. The crowd, as if jolted by an unseen force, began to part, some out of shame, others out of sheer surprise. Mr. Joker stood frozen, his mouth agape, unable to comprehend being ignored. As the woman and the girl approached, Henry knelt beside the wheelchair. The horse, as if sensing the significance of the moment, lowered its head slightly. Henry gently took the girl's hand, guiding it to the horse's soft mane. Her face lit up with a smile so pure and radiant that even the most cynical onlookers felt a lump in their throats. The crowd came alive. Someone clapped, another shouted, "That's what it means to be a true human being." Mr. Joker stood rooted, his earlier bravado evaporating. His jokes, his smirks, his pathetic attempt at self-importance, all of it now seemed trivial and small. Mumbling something under his breath, he began to slink away, retreating into the anonymity of the crowd. His show was over. Henry, adjusting his hat, returned to his post. Once again he became the immovable figure of the Royal Guard. Words were unnecessary. His actions had said everything. What had been a farcical spectacle minutes earlier had transformed into a lesson in dignity and humanity. The crowd, previously indifferent or amused by Mr. Joker's antics, shifted its tone. Angry voices began to rise. "That was too much! Get out of here! Apologize!" Mr. Joker, who had basked in the limelight just moments ago, now found himself the target of public scorn. His face reddened, and for the first time, he seemed to realize he was no longer in control. The crowd, like a tide, surged with moral outrage. "Apologize to the girl and the guardsman!" someone from the front shouted. Under the glare of countless cameras, Mr. Joker stammered. "All right. Sorry," he muttered, spitting the word like it left a bad taste in his mouth. But the crowd demanded more. His attempt to retreat seemed as pathetic as his earlier jokes. Holding tightly to his water bottle, he slinked further back and disappeared into the sea of people. Those who had laughed earlier stood in silence, as if realizing how easily they could have been complicit. As for Henry, as though nothing had happened, calmly adjusted his bearskin hat and resumed his post. His face returned to the stoic expression that made the Royal Guards iconic symbols of British resilience. But in that moment, his figure seemed taller, prouder, more majestic. The crowd erupted into applause. "That's honor and dignity for you!" someone shouted, and others echoed the sentiment. Cameras came alive once more, but this time to document triumph rather than humiliation. Within hours, videos of the scene went viral online. Comments poured in, brimming with admiration. "This guardsman is a true hero. That's how you uphold tradition. And that Joker, what a disgrace to tourists everywhere." Henry, standing at attention, showed no emotion. But perhaps, just perhaps, a glimmer of a smile flickered in his eyes. Or maybe it was just the light. Regardless, he knew one thing. His actions had reminded everyone present that honor and humanity must always go hand in hand.